With all that's going on in the world, should our NBA athletes, NFL athletes, should they have an opinion about what's going on? Recently, LeBron James came out and basically he condemned the actions of what Donald Trump was doing, our president. In addition to that, he stated that in order for us to get this thing moving, especially with the events that happened in Charlottesville, we just need to approach the situation with love. Everybody needs to embrace one another, and we need to come together instead of creating such mass division. And on one hand, people say, they want their athletes to have an opinion. And on the other hand, people say, you know what, just play the game, just play the sport. And I, for one, believe that our athletes should definitely have an opinion on what's going on. I applaud the actions of Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee, for taking a stand for all the unarmed black men and women who have been killed by the police. Just basically due to lack of training, due to ignorance, and due to mishandling of situations. So many people that have passed away in the past 3 years, and the statistics show that African American men are being targeted the most. So of course, what Kaepernick is doing, I have to applaud him. What LeBron James did speaking out about what's going on in Charlottesville, you have to applaud him. I love for our athletes to have an opinion. The problem is, this is the thing. Most people, especially the ones that buy tickets to the game, buy league passes, etc., when they look at their athletes, they're like, you're just an idiot. All you know how to do is dribble a ball or throw a football or catch a football or dunk a basketball. You shouldn't have an opinion about anything. You're not educated like I am. They almost look down on athletes. You know what I'm saying? Like even the other day with the NFL, it was like an NFL draft, draft auction. There you go. They were almost. Stephen A. Smith remarked how it almost looked like a slave trade, and that's kind of the thing it is today with athletes. Athletes are just looked at as a commodity, something to give us entertainment. A lot of people, especially those with quote unquote high education or rich people or just anybody in between, they think athletes should not have an opinion. They think athletes are dumb. They think athletes are beneath them. You didn't finish 4 years of school. You only went to school for 1 year, or you went to the pros from high school. So you're not smart enough to have an opinion. And that is the most egotistical, derogatory thing you could say about an athlete. They're a human being just like you are. Matter of fact, you can say without a degree, they're more educated than you are due to the simple fact that they were able to figure out how to leverage their talents to be much more successful than you are. So a lot of people, with degrees, master's degrees, doctorates, they look down on the athlete. Fans, a lot of consumers, they look down on the athlete. Sponsors, they're like, okay, like if this athlete says something, I'm pulling all my money, because they're looking down on the athlete for having an opinion. So you have to applaud these guys like Kaepernick and LeBron for taking a stand and saying, hey, I'm not going to let endorsement deals run my life, because at the end of the day, I'm a human being. Before I'm LeBron James, the player, before I'm Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback, I'm Colin Kaepernick, the man. I'm LeBron James, the man. I have sons. LeBron James has two sons and a daughter. You know what I'm saying? What kind of world is he going to leave his son to live in if he doesn't speak up? Because these guys have such a big platform that they can influence the masses. If you don't think it's true, think about this. Donald Trump held an economic summit, and so many of the large companies pulled out due to the simple fact of what happened in Charlottesville. And you could damn sure believe what LeBron James said influenced those CEOs and the huge economy of the United States of America. All the companies, it was like 6 or 7 companies that pulled out. And that comes from awareness. That comes from our athletes speaking up. Athletes should speak up about their opinions on situations, because it pushes the dialogue, and it also allows us to understand, like, hey, LeBron is not just the player. He's not just the guy cashing a check all the time. He sees what I'm going through, and I can see that it affects him as well, because the going status quo is these guys are so rich, they never experienced racism. They never experienced this. They never experienced that, which is completely false. You know, the old owner of BET, she's a billionaire, basically. And she said it took her 10 years to purchase a home because of all the paperwork they were throwing at her. Because she was black, they didn't want her to live in such a lavish home. That's how bad the racism is. It doesn't matter how much money you have. And the fact that she spoke up about that lets you know it's not a money thing. And racism still exists if you're poor or if you're a billionaire or a multimillionaire like she is. So that being said, it's great for our players to speak up and say, hey man, I see what you guys are going through. This affects me as well. I have family members that go through the same thing. You know, LeBron had, derogatory words written on his house in Brentwood, California. So he has seen firsthand how things affect everybody. So it's important for athletes to speak up, man. We can't have them hush hush, because here's the thing, and this is what the people that want these things to continue on, such as racism, ignorance, they want us to say, well, we see sports as an escape. It's all an escape. So when we watch the sports, we forget everything that's going on in the background. So when there's a big playoff game, we ignore the fact that somebody got shot and killed out of hate. When there's a great game on and our players aren't speaking about what's going on in the world, we just completely ignore the fact that, hey, there's some unarmed black men being killed. That's what they want. They want us to ignore what's really going on in our community and our society so they can continue to profit off of us, make their dollars, make their coins. When our athletes speak up, it draws awareness, because you got to understand there's some people that don't even watch the news. All they watch is sports. So the athletes have such a huge platform to make a change. So, even with the whole Eric Garner situation, when all the players donned the shirt, "I can't breathe," that brought it to the masses, to corporate America, to white America. Like, look what's going on. It's not something that you can ignore, because a lot of the owners, which are billionaires, which influence the U.S. economy, they have the power to elicit huge change. But the thing is, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense, so they ignore what's going on. It doesn't affect them. You know what I'm saying? Like that whole thing with Kaepernick taking a knee, and Shannon Sharpe said it best. It doesn't affect him when unarmed black men get killed. All he's worried about is, hey, am I selling tickets? Am I doing this? He has his own. The billionaires have their own private security detail. That stuff doesn't affect them. But when the player comes out and dons a shirt or takes a knee or takes a stand, that forces the owner's hand. Like, am I gonna ignore this, or am I gonna respond to this? Now, when they respond to it adversely, it just proves the player's point. It just shows, like, you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is right, and you don't want any parts of it. You're scared of what I'm saying, which is what most people are. They're scared to say something's wrong. It takes a very brave person to take a stand, like a Kaepernick, like a LeBron. You gotta applaud these guys, because they could stand to lose millions of dollars and they could be blackballed. Like Colin Kaepernick basically can't get a job because he took a stance against what's going on, which is wrong. And the owner should agree, like, hey, this is wrong. We don't support unarmed killing of black men or any people. But they won't say that. They won't mention anything about that. They'll just keep mentioning that they're disrespecting the flag. They won't mention the fact that these people's lives are being disrespected and taken away for no reason. They won't talk about that. See? And that's why we need our athletes to speak up, because they're forcing the hand of the owners. Now, this is front page news. Now we see that LeBron takes this stand. Now we see that, there's something that needs to be said or done, some kind of dialogue. Now Adam Silver's going to come out and speak. Now the NBA owners are going to have to speak, because their star players, a player saying something. Like when everything was going on with the unarmed black killings of black men, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and LeBron at the ESPYs, that's a strong statement. That's what we need, because we need our leaders in our community. Because you got to understand, in our community, a lot of the leaders aren't the president or whatever. It's athletes, rappers, etc., etc. We need them to take a stand. We need them to make moves so we can understand we're not going to wait on anybody. Like what happened in Katrina when the levees broke, Young Jeezy actually got 10 Hummers and filled with water and food and help people in that community. Like 10, 15 Hummers. People, they won't mention that though. And that's what we need. We need to have strong examples of our quote-unquote entertainers. See, they put them in the entertainer category to the point where they shouldn't have opinion, shouldn't say anything. And that's dead wrong. That's dead wrong. These guys have the power to elicit change, and they have the power to bring people's plight to the entire world. When NBA games are being watched, 7 million people are watching, 8 million people are watching, more than that at times. When NFL players taking a knee, they're bringing something to the forefront, which causes dialogue, which eventually causes action. Because if more than one player takes action, now it's a problem. Now we got to deal with this. Now the NBA has to speak. Now the NFL has to speak. Now there's a domino effect. And that's what you have to understand. That's why I like for our athletes to have an opinion. They must have an opinion on things, even if it's the adverse opinion. Now we get to see, well, maybe this person has been living a life to the point where he's lost touch. Or maybe he's been living a life where he's well in touch. So we get to see how money influences things, how race influences things. But when athletes stay shut and they're scared to talk and they're saying this is a time and a place like Des Bryant, it's like you can have an opinion. You can have an opinion. It's your opinion. Nobody's going to take away from you. You deserve, you're not an animal. You're not a thing. You're not something, nobody owns you. You're a human being. You should have an opinion on what's going on, especially when it's affecting, your community. The thing is like people get wealthy and they're like, that's not my community. That's not my people anymore. It's like they're a leopard and they're trying to change their spots all of a sudden, become a zebra. Like, I don't do that anymore. I don't deal with that anymore. Knowing deep down inside, there's cousins and grandmothers and aunts that still live in that still deal with that same stuff. So you can't just ignore it. You're going to have children in the future that will have to go through that. Will have to go to school and deal with ignorance. You know what I'm saying? So these athletes definitely need to take a stand. They need to express their opinion, because when they don't speak, everything dies out fast. Somebody gets murdered and nobody talks about it, or our athletes are too scared to talk about it or take a stand. It's like, okay, it's not important. When CNN is talking about it and they're giving us their opinions, they have their experts and quote unquote, this person, their opinions and stuff. What about our opinions? Do our opinions matter? And that's why athletes need to speak up. They need to speak. All of them. Because that drives the dialogue and that keeps the issues up and going. And that's going to cause change and action. One of the things I got to leave you with, when Muhammad Ali did not want to go to Vietnam because he refused to get drafted, they stripped him of his boxing title. A lot of people called him a coward for not going to Vietnam. They said, all they would have him do is, show boxing exhibitions, etc., etc. They called him a coward and everything. But Muhammad Ali expressed the disappointment and the disgust millions of Americans had with what was going on in Vietnam. Many Americans during that time period felt like it wasn't a war for us to be fighting. And here's the thing, no disrespect to anybody that went through Vietnam. I respect the veterans. They get a bad rap, and it's nothing to do with the veterans, because it has to do with the leadership that sent our veterans there. Because at the end of the day, in the military, you're told what to do. It's not like you make your own choice. So Muhammad Ali took a stand, and he was like, listen, I'm not going to do this. And one of the most iconic things that came out of that was the Ali Summit. And you had Jim Brown, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, and they're all supporting Ali, saying if he doesn't want to go to get drafted, that's it. That's his decision, because he doesn't support what's going on. Especially that was his religious right. Now you see where religious rights are upheld strongly due to the Ali Summit, due to civil rights movements by Martin Luther King. So these things that happened are important. Think about Bill Russell. Bill Russell went through so much racism in his career where he couldn't stay in hotels. He's Bill Russell, one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA during that time period in the 60s. He can't stay in this hotel. And his teammates say, if he can't stay, we're not staying. And they leave. And one of the things Bill Russell said in the 1960s, which we actually got to see with our 44th president, he went to a school full of black children. He said, "You never know. Maybe one day you could be the president of the United States." Now, if Bill Russell doesn't speak his mind on something like that and say, one day, black children, you guys, which they've never seen at the time, 40, 50 years ago, one day you can be president of the United States. We don't have a Barack Obama. And that's the point. That's the point of why these guys need to have an opinion. Because they have the power to elicit huge change. Not a small change, not a minor change. Huge change. Athletes need to have an opinion. They need to state it clearly and not be afraid of the consequences. This is Vlad Hoops Junction, where Hoops meets Hoopla. Peace.